Have you ever felt like you've waited way too long and at this point, nothing is going to stop the leaks? If so, I like to call this the shame spin. The shame spin is that little negative voice in your head that has really big consequences. You ignore the leaks, you try to cover it up, try to fix it yourself, and then eventually you feel worse. In today's video, I'm going to talk about why the shame spin keeps you leaking, how to get out of it, and something very specific that you need to let go before any exercise plan will work. So let's get into it. So let's first break down this shame thing. So I know when I hear the word shame, immediately I'm like, that's not me. Like, I don't identify as someone who shames myself. But I think that's why that word can be very tricky, because shame is something that we can be doing subconsciously. And it's something that can manifest not only in the way we talk, but the way that we feel about ourselves. So there's 3 sneaky ways that shame can creep up. And I want to break that down first, because if we don't identify it, then we won't know how to fight it. So number 1, shame can come in the form of negative self-talk. Like, oh, I should be over this by now. I am too grown to be peeing my pants. Why am I still going through this? Or I should have been figured this out or fixed this. A lot of times we as women can talk really down on ourselves. And so that impacts, 1, how you feel about the leakage and how vocal you're going to be about getting support for the leakage. So if you are subconsciously shaming yourself and thinking that you can figure it out on your own, that's definitely going to impact who you reach out to and who you tell about your problem, which ultimately is what you need to receive help. Number 2 is hiding. So this comes in the form, or I should say, this is a form of shame that comes with like not going out as much, only wearing dark colors, not wearing thin clothing, and like physically hiding yourself from being out in social events. And so sometimes that starts out as like very small actions that can become very limiting. Maybe this turns into you don't go out away from home more than 30, or you don't leave your house more than 30 minutes. Maybe you find yourself turning down invites. You're not going to go out to a concert with your friends who are drinking if you think alcohol is a trigger, and you're going to be away from home 3 to 4 hours and you're just not sure where all the bathrooms are. Hiding can present itself in many ways, and hiding is typically, again, not what we want when we're trying to stop the leakage. We need to be able to express our concerns and our fears, but we also have to get ourselves back out there at some point along the journey. You don't want to hide forever, because that does nothing to stop the leakage, which leads me to my last point, which is fear. So fear of judgment, fear of being found out, fear of being seen with a wet spot. So when we're fearful, we try to, again, cover it up. So this could be like you start to wear pads, and maybe that's something that you initially have to do, but wearing pads and protection really shouldn't be a long-term fix, and it isn't a long-term solution. So if we start to cover up the wet spots by what we wear and what type of pads we use, but we really never address why we're leaking, that keeps us in that shame spin or that shame cycle. Also, this can be really exhausting. So if you're always trying to cover up, you're always planning what you're going to wear and having to carry 2 and 3 changes of clothes or changes of underwear, it's very exhausting to live like that. And if that's the case, how will you have the energy to really fight and have the physical strength to retrain your pelvic floor, which is what we're all about when we're trying to stop leaking. So it's like where our brain goes, our body follows. So we want to make sure that we're speaking to ourselves positively. We have the right support in our lives, and we're not fearful of making mistakes or letting fear dictate how we live, letting fear dictate what type of things that we're willing to try, because none of that is going to get you out of the shame spin, and it doesn't resolve the leakage anyway. All right. So now that we've identified what shame looks like and how it could present in your day-to-day life, we need to identify what is it that you're holding on to, or how shame can get you stuck, and what you may need to let go of as you go along this journey to stop your healing. So there's 2 things that I have in this category, or in this little like bucket of what we need to let go of. And the first one is holding on to this like superwoman, got to get it done by by myself mentality. And so sometimes when you kind of speak to yourself negatively, or shame is kind of an undercurrent in how you feel about your situation when you leak, it's really easy to like kind of box yourself in. Into that mentality that you got to figure this out on your own. If I don't get it done, it's not getting done. No one can really help me. And that can be super limiting when you're trying to stop leakage, because there are professionals like myself that can help support you along the way. We're not really taught a lot about our bodies, from young ages of young girls on up to postmenopausal. There's so many things that women are kind of finding out as they go. And so if you're not really a specialist in that area, then it's not meant for you to figure it out on your own. It'd be like, because you're a car owner, you're supposed to know how to, take the engine out of your car. Like, you need a mechanic for that, or if you're having chest pains, trying to figure it out on your own instead of going to your cardiologist. Like, we don't have to bear it all. We're not supposed to be able to figure it all out on our own. And that's why there are specialists out here. But if you have that mentality and you're kind of stuck in that shame spin of like, I just can't believe I let myself get this far, then you're going to be less likely to ask for help. And so that help is really important. It's really important to take that cape off, to be able to speak up and say, hey, I don't got this. We hear the term, it's okay to not be okay. It's okay to raise your hand to say, these leaks are getting out of hand. This really bothers me and I need support to figure this thing out. There's nothing wrong with that. And that's actually very courageous to be able to speak up and do that. And then number two, I wanted to point out letting go of myths. So letting go of thinking that this is normal. There's so many myths that are associated with leakage and pelvic floor problems. Some women feel like sex is supposed to hurt because they've had pain all their life, or their first experience was painful. So they think all their experiences are supposed to be painful. And that's not true. Or people, again, struggle with leakage because they've had multiple children. So they think, well, I've had a few babies. This just kind of comes with the territory. Or maybe they were told that by a medical professional, because that does happen too. So there's several myths that are out here. As you age, you're supposed to just kind of lose control down there. And that's just not true. So these are things that we have to let go of, because if you believe deep down in your core that it's just meant for you to leak your pants and to have pelvic floor problems, then you're really not going to even believe it's possible to resolve it. So we've got to, again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of things start with your mentality. Like, what do you really believe to be true about your body? And what do you really believe to be true as a possibility to stop the leaks? And this is one of the biggest differences that I see in women who are able to resolve their leakage versus those that kind of stay in this shame spin and nothing really changes. It's not only letting go of these myths, but also moving from this level of awareness of like, okay, this isn't normal, and actually doing something about it. Because, we can educate ourselves, we can watch all the videos, but we have to take action and move forward from, okay, I know I need help, and now we have to do it. And so if you're stuck in that shame spin, your mentality kind of just has you stuck, like, I'm never going to get over this, or can this person really help me? And you're full of self-doubt, you typically will have some limitations in the amount of leakage that you're able to resolve. So how do we replace shame, and what does this all mean for your pelvic floor? And so one way to kind of replace shame is to disrupt the cycle. We have to find a big enough disruptor that's going to make us have a change in how we respond, what we're thinking, and the energy we're willing to put forth to start to see some physical changes, and that's all about the changes in the pelvic floor. So these disruptors can come in many forms. The first one that I want to talk about is, so I already said that negative self-talk kind of keeps us in the shame spin. So the disruptor to that is positive self-talk. I can do this. If you're someone who deals with urgency, like you get these super strong urges to pee all the time, one strategy that we teach is really just talking nice to yourself. I'm going to make it to the bathroom. I've done this before. My bladder really isn't full. I got this. Sometimes they all sound silly, but it really works because, again, where the brain goes, our body follows. So if you think it, your body will start to accept that and just develop a new pattern. So when you do feel an urge, it's not an emergency. All the fire alarms won't go off and you'll be able to make it to the bathroom without leaks. So that's the first example. So number two would be stepping outside of your comfort zone. So instead of hiding, we're going to do something that might make us a little bit uncomfortable. But again, we're trying to retrain our mind and our body to have a different experience. So when you're working with a pelvic floor specialist and someone who's supporting you to incorporate these strategies at the right time, then we can figure that out. When is it appropriate for you to do these things outside of your comfort zone? For example, one thing that I love to try with my clients is if you're someone who wears pads all the time, don't leave home without them. Don't leave without putting something in your bag or something in your car. Then I like to start with okay, where can we have some situations where we're not wearing pads, where we have some success? So the first place of comfort is typically your home. Can we go 30 minutes, without wearing a pad in your house? Can we go an hour? Can we extend that to half the day? Can we maybe take a quick trip to the grocery store without wearing a pad, and then coming back home? And again, this is at an appropriate time in the journey when you've had other pelvic floor training. But when we're trying to get past the hiding and the shame, we want to start to develop new ways of living and new confidence within ourselves. And the only way to do that is to step outside of your comfort zone so you can start to pair positive experiences with not wearing pads. So that's number two. So number three, the third way to kind of disrupt the shame spin is to choose a different response. And so this is connected to hiding because it involves you speaking up, sharing your story, being vocal, of course, with a trusted person about what you're going through. So this could be a pelvic floor specialist, the person that you're working with to stop the leakage, but this could also be just sharing amongst a group of friends. 1 in 3 women experience leakage. So somebody in your circle is dealing with the same thing. So instead of brushing it off and laughing it off oh, we all pee our pants, because I've heard that term before, who's going to be the disruptor in the group to say, hey, I'm not accepting of this. This really isn't funny to me. And this is what I'm doing to resolve it. You could be the disruptor in your circle of friends that allows someone else to start to seek help and stop their leakage. So if we want to see change, if we want to kind of disrupt the cycle, we have to choose a different response. Now, the fourth disruptor that you need to stop this shame spin is sustainable change. So this comes in the form of course, accepting support, but also really implementing some lifestyle changes that are going to help you to maintain whatever progress you've made, whatever change you've started to see in the pelvic floor. We want this to be lifelong. We're not doing something for 4 weeks and then going back to our old ways, which is why it's so important to be paired with the right person, because we need to meet you where you are so that all the changes that you make are things that you can sustain. Sustainable change also comes in the form of how you're taking care of yourself. So I actually have a video about the stop method, which is a method that I teach to help support any type of exercises that you're doing for pelvic floor change and to stop the leakage. And I'll put that link in the description. But the stop method is what you need to establish that good foundation for your pelvic floor, because in order to stop the leaks, it's not about just doing Kegels. It's not just all about exercises. There are behavioral changes, there are diet changes, there are, again, lifestyle changes that you need to sustain, because once you kind of take your eyes off of the prize and forget about all these things that you've done to, again, make the changes in your pelvic floor, the leaks can return. You can have some regressions. You can have some times where it feels like nothing is working. And the stop method is what has to be in place, again, to establish that good foundation for anything that you do, or any exercise that you do for your pelvic floor, to actually work and to be optimal. And so again, we want sustainable change that disrupts the shame spin, because the shame spin is about doing the same thing over and over, these cycles. I want to stop leaking. I can't stop leaking. I try to do it on my own and now I feel worse. And it's like, you just kind of go through this cycle and you spin, which is why I call it the shame spin. So that disruptor of sustainable change is a new action. direction. It's a new way of life. If we want to stop leaking, then we have to take a different approach. Is it for today's video. I hope that you found something useful here. And I hope that you start to consider that the things that we don't think are big deals become a big deal. And so how we speak to ourselves, how we view our bodies, how we speak up about our problems is all going to affect your journey to stop the leaks. And so if you follow me, you know that I always say it's not just about the exercise. And these are the things that I like to point out because these are the things that I see that really keep people stuck or hold them back from the leak-free life that they really want to live. So if you haven't already, please make sure that you like this video, subscribe so you don't miss any future videos. And if you're interested in working with me one-on-one, don't forget to click the link that I'll also have in the description so that you can apply to work with me one-on-one. Thanks, and I'll see you in the next video.